Close your eyes if you want. Let your shoulders drop. Imagine a small lamp in a darkened room. Soft, round, the kind of light that makes pages look friendly and gives the world a gentle edge. That lamp is the voice you're about to hear. It speaks slowly, the way someone tells a story not to teach, but to keep someone company until sleep arrives. I remember arriving like someone stepping into a dream that smelled of wet earth and metal. The air was thick, the kind of thickness that folded around you like a blanket. It was a warm, oily heat that settled in the bones and made every movement feel deliberate, as if the day itself encouraged slow, careful steps. We learned quickly to move with softness, boots sinking into mud that kept some small, steady pull on the ankles, hands memorizing the weight of packs and the exact sound of a zipper, the way canvas sings when you slide into a sling. Morning had a ritualistic beauty. Dawn came on small feet, a thin light first, then a ribbon of gold that slipped between leaves and turned dew into tiny lamps. There were always familiar sounds, the creak of a hammock, the distant laugh of someone who had found a way to make coffee taste like home, the zip of a mosquito net being tucked, the soft scuff of men waking into being. We learned to respect mornings as one respects a quiet person. They are fragile and revealing. A kettle on a crate, the hiss of water finding heat, the first sip of something that tastes almost like warmth itself. Those small things were treasure. Camaraderie arrived unannounced and kept its own quiet dignity. It was not the grand, heroic kind you see in films. It was the subtle, sustaining kind. A hand on a shoulder when someone blinked too long into the distance. A borrowed pair of socks folded carefully and given like a gift, the way someone knew the exact joke to tell when a day had turned heavy. You learn to read people in small measures, who sing softly to themselves when they're thinking, who hums under their breath as they repair a strap, who saves the best piece of fruit for someone with a younger laugh. Those small mercies become the architecture of friendship. In the night, you would lay under a sky so dense it seemed stitched with stars, and you would trade stories as if they were blankets, each one folded and offered in turn. The jungle felt like a living thing that both watched and warmed you. It was full of noise that never quite resolved into silence. Insect chatter, distant bird calls, leaves rubbing together like old hands. There was an intimacy there, if you learned to listen for it. The whisper of rain finding the ground, the muffled footfall of something moving through brush, the sudden hush that fell when a storm was about to pass. Rain itself had a personality. Sometimes it came like a slow mercy, a cleansing that left everything smelling new and honest. Sometimes it arrived in a hurry, heavy and urgent, turning trails into rivers and making the world blur into one wet, moving thing. Under a poncho, with a small light and someone you trust nearby, you could feel the rain like a lullaby, relentless, yes, but also steady and somehow truthful. There were routines that made the days manageable, small rituals that kept panic at bay. You check your boots. You fold your map the way your grandfather folded a letter. You tuck a photograph into the inside of your helmet, the edges worn from being visited often. You butter a piece of hardtack and pass it across a crate because sharing is how you measure care. Rituals become tiny anchors. They remind you that some parts of the world are still orderly, still familiar, even when most things have been rearranged. Letters from home were like small, illicit suns. You would read them by whatever light you could find, tucking the paper close as if the ink itself might evaporate. In those letters were the ordinary details of a life that felt impossibly distant and radically present all at once. The way Mrs. Henderson down the lane had trimmed her roses, the description of a football game where someone laughed too loud, the sound of a child practicing scales on a battered piano. Names became places, and places became names. Reading a letter could make you cry so softly you didn't wake the man next to you. It could also make you laugh until your stomach ached. The human voice on paper was a bridge, and we crossed it again and again. There is a strange economy of small comforts in that kind of life. Coffee becomes more than a drink. It is a quiet ceremony. A cigarette offered becomes a conversation without words. A sweater shared is a kindness that keeps you warm in more ways than one. You learn to be grateful for the almost invisible things: a dry pair of socks, a clean spoon, a day without orders. Gratitude is not grand, it is a careful noticing. You begin to catalog joys like someone who collects shells, the exact shade of dawn, the way light hits an old tin cup, the sound of a particular laugh when someone tells a story they've told 100 times, but which always lands new. Fear is a presence that does not always roar. Often, it is a quiet, patient thing that tucks itself into the corners, wearing the same face as tiredness. You feel it in the tightening of your hands, in the way your jaw works when you force a smile, in the hollow between your ribs when you think of people you love. But fear is not only a predator, it is also a teacher. It teaches you the value of small, deliberate movements, the importance of listening closely, the art of choosing words carefully. It teaches you how to be brave without showing off, how to hold your breath and wait for the moment when you can exhale. Loss comes like evening. It is not a dramatic collapse, but a rearrangement of furniture in your heart. There are things you cannot speak of without the throat tightening, the absence of a laugh that used to make the dark lighter, the empty place at a mess table where a hand once slapped a knee. Grief is patient and domestic. It sits at the edge of everything, and sometimes it cooks quietly with you as you try to make a meal. You build small shrines in your mind, a phrase someone used, the smell of a shirt, the exact tilt of a smile. You learn to hold those shrines gently, like fragile porcelain. There are days that unfold like simple stories. A patrol that turned up nothing but an old path. A morning spent fixing a radio until your fingers learned the map of its inside. An afternoon where someone started humming a song from back home, and the whole place felt for a moment like a living room. There are other days that rearrange everything. I will not linger on violence. It needs no embellishment to be real. Instead, I will say this: after the sharp edges of such days, the small things become more sacred. Washing mud from a jacket, pressing a photograph flat to warm it in your hands, or quietly making sure everyone has enough water. These actions are like prayers. They are how you stitch the torn edges back together. Music is a soft medicine. A harmonica pressed between lips can make a field feel like a chapel. A scratched record played on a battered phonograph can conjure kitchens and rainy streets and unremarkable afternoons that feel like salvation. Sometimes someone would sing a song quietly, and the melody would settle like flour over the hard shapes of the day, softening them. You learn the power of rhythm, footsteps keeping time, a hand tapping out a phrase on a crate, the metronome of a distant fan. Rhythm is a way of saying the world will continue, even when the shape of tomorrow is unknown. There are conversations in the dark that last without ending, the kind you have when sleep is a thin film you can almost touch. People tell their stories in fragments, a childhood scrape that healed crooked, a promise they made once and forgot, a fear of being forgotten. You realize everyone carries a geography of small, private things. You begin to understand that to be a soldier is also to learn how to carry other people's small worlds gently, because they become part of your own. Longing is an ongoing companion. It sits behind your ribs like a small, steady drumbeat. Sometimes it is sharp, like the urge to reach out and touch someone's hair. Other times, it is a soft ache, the kind you can soothe with ritual, reading a letter aloud, hiding a photograph where you can see it when you wake. Longing teaches patience. It shows you how memories can act like a hearth you sit by, warming your hands and making the dark less hostile. When you have the rare leave, the sensation of walking through a town that remembers you as an absence is strange and tender. People look at you in a different way. Their curiosity mixes with compassion and confusion. You learn to translate your experiences into small truths that make sense in ordinary life. You tell simpler stories about rain or a particular coffee, because the big, sharp things do not always have language that travels well. Returning, you find that home wears new clothes. It is familiar and yet rearranged, as if someone cleaned the rooms and shifted the furniture while you were away. You learn to be patient with people's questions because they are trying to put you back inside a story that is no longer exactly yours. Time in that life moves in two ways. The calendar counts days, but a different time keeps watch in the quiet, the kind that stacks memories and turns them luminous. You begin to measure years by the scent of certain soaps, by the flavor of a street vendor's food, by a laugh that stays the same even as faces age. When you look back years later, the seasons fold into one another like pages in a well-loved book. You find that small details are the ones that endure. The exact sound of rain on a tin roof, the way a particular old man would tilt his hat and say hello, the sound of the sea somewhere just over the green horizon. Healing is not sudden. It is slow and domestic, like mending a favorite sweater with patient small stitches. You learn to tolerate your own silences, to accept that some questions will never have neat answers. You find companions who know how to sit with you in a way that doesn't ask for explanations. You accept that courage is sometimes a quiet practice, showing up, sweeping the floor, making tea, listening when someone tells the same story for the 20th time because it comforts them. There is also gratitude that keeps returning, like a recurring tide. It is gratitude for the small, ordinary kindnesses, a warm meal on a cold night, the fixed smile of a neighbor who has enough grace to pretend everything is okay, the steady presence of friends who hold you up when the load grows heavy. Gratitude is not naive. It simply remembers to name what's gentle in a world that can be sharp. If you are lying there with your eyes closing, let these images be small, steady things you can carry to sleep. Picture the lamp again, small, warm, and patient. Imagine a man folding a letter with careful fingers, a tin cup warming between his palms, the gentle hush of rain on canvas. Let those small, precise details settle like a blanket. In the end, being a soldier anywhere is a complicated, humble thing. It asks you for endurance and tenderness in equal measure. It asks you to find light in small places and to learn the quiet languages of care, the way to fold a letter so it lasts, the exact knot that won't come undone, the joke that will make someone smile even if the rest of the day has gone sour. Those are the true maps you keep, fragile, human, and essential. Breathe slowly now. Inhale the memory of rain. Exhale and think of the small lamp swinging low over a table where friends share a cup. Let sleep come like a soft tide, unhurried and kind. Tomorrow, whatever it brings, will find you in the same small, steady way you find your feet beneath you every morning. Rest and be gentle with yourself as the night wraps you up like a well-worn blanket. Good night. Thanks for watching this journey through sleep history. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a like. It really helps out. And if you'd like to see more content like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next one. Sweet dreams and I'll see you in the next video.